Welcome to Shatter.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. She used to flinch when I reached for her. Not dramatically, just enough to make sure I noticed. A shoulder pull, a step back. That polite, quiet freeze that told me her body was no longer mine to hold. Not even in marriage. She said she was tired, that she needed space. That physical touch overwhelmed her sometimes. So I gave it to her. I gave her space so wide it echoed. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was being too needy. Maybe I wasn't reading the room. Maybe affection wasn't how she felt love anymore. But I noticed she didn't flinch when her phone lit up. Didn't pull away when her friends hugged her. Just me. I once reached out to hold her hand in the car, and she said, "Can you not?" Not angry. Not annoyed. Just distant. That's the moment that stuck. Because it wasn't just about affection. It was about access. She was closing the gates and pretending it was weather. At dinner parties, she laughed louder when I was quiet. She'd compliment others and forget I was across the table. Her friend Kate even joked once, "You two still together? You act more like roommates." Everyone laughed. I did too. But something inside me went silent. The first time I felt the shift was on a Thursday night. She came home late, said work ran long. She didn't say where she'd been, but she smelled like someone else's cologne, not mine. And I knew, deep down, that someone else had been allowed in. Somewhere I hadn't been invited in months. But I didn't confront her. I watched. I listened. And I stopped reaching. No more late-night hand grazes. No more kisses on the back of her neck while she cooked. No more instinctive touches just to say, "I see you. I still want you." She didn't notice at first. Until the night she leaned over to grab the remote and brushed against me. And I didn't flinch. Didn't react. Didn't even blink. She looked at me like I'd vanished. That's when it started. The panic. The confusion. The little questions in her voice. "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" But I just smiled. Said I was fine. Because I was. I had finally realized I didn't need to beg for warmth from someone who built walls around the very idea of closeness. I had learned her language. She used to say, "Don't touch me." Now, I don't even look at her. And somehow, that's what hurts her most. It was a Tuesday when the first real clue dropped, not in words, but in her smile. She got a text at 11:17 p.m. She didn't expect me to be awake. I wasn't supposed to see the way her face lit up. The small upward curve, the soft chuckle she couldn't suppress. It wasn't the reaction of someone reading a work email. That wasn't how she smiled at anything I'd said in months. She turned the phone over quickly, too quickly, then walked into the bathroom, locking the door behind her, which she never used to do. I stared at the ceiling and counted how long she was gone. 9 minutes. When she came back, her face was different. Not flustered, just adjusted, rehearsed. She slid into bed and turned away from me without a word. I laid there, fully awake, the silence between us suddenly deafening. That's when I started checking the patterns. Not out of jealousy, out of curiosity. Her screen time had jumped. Always around 10 p.m., always the same apps. She started taking her phone into the shower, stopped falling asleep beside me, started accidentally nodding off on the couch, blanket pulled up, lights still on. It was a strategy, quiet, consistent withdrawal. I didn't accuse her. I adapted. The man I used to be would have tried to talk, ask questions, schedule a weekend getaway. Now I just logged the data, calmly, the way you study a puzzle before pulling it apart. A few days later, I saw the name on her phone. Evan. Just a flash of it. Could have been a coworker, a classmate. But I knew better. Because when she said his name later, in passing, while telling a story about work, her voice softened. She said he was just helping her with a proposal. That he was really insightful. That he gets it. She hadn't said anything like that about me in over a year. That night, I didn't sleep next to her. I stayed in the office, working late, door closed. She didn't check on me. She didn't ask what I was doing. She didn't notice that something in me had clicked into place, the final piece in a long, slow collapse. The version of me who wanted answers was fading. And the version of me who wanted peace? He was just getting started. She said she needed space. I was finally giving it to her, not in inches, in miles. She started acting sweeter after that. Not warmer, just more careful, like she could feel something slipping and didn't know what it was yet. She brought me coffee in the mornings again, smiled when I walked into the room, laughed a little too loud at things I didn't say to be funny. It wasn't affection. It was deflection. And I let her do it. I let her play soft while I played still. Because when a man truly goes quiet, it's never because he's confused. It's because he's done gathering evidence. One night, she left her phone on the counter while she showered. A message popped up. Evan again. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The preview was enough. Last night was hard to forget. I locked the screen. Put the phone right back where it was. Didn't touch anything else. When she came out, towel in her hair, I looked up from my book, nodded once, and went back to reading. That shook her more than yelling ever could have. She started watching me after that, studying my face during dinner, asking questions she hadn't cared about in months, like where I was going, what I was thinking, if I still loved her. I didn't answer with lies. I answered with silence. Because some truths don't need to be shouted. They just need to be lived. I stopped texting her during the day. I stopped waiting for her to come to bed. I started going to the gym again, eating cleaner, waking up earlier. I even took a road trip, solo, no announcement. Just left a note that said, back Monday. She texted me twice that weekend. I didn't respond, because I knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't miss me. She missed the man who used to orbit her world. Now he was building his own. When I returned, she had cleaned the house top to bottom, made my favorite dinner, set 2 plates. I served myself, ate quietly, then took my plate into the other room. No fight, no lecture, just distance, clean, cold, and irreversible. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about extraction. She used to say, "Don't touch me," without saying it. Now I had made it real. No more touches. No more words. No more access. She could feel me slipping away, and the scariest part? She knew she had nothing left to hold me with. She didn't realize I was gone until I stopped reacting altogether. No raised voice. No slammed doors. Just that dead calm. The kind that only shows up when a man has already buried the version of himself that begged to be seen. I started sleeping in the guest room. No fight. Just a quiet shift. I moved my pillow, my charger, my watch. She noticed. The first night, she said nothing. The second, she lingered in the hallway, waiting for an invitation that never came. By the third, she asked, "Why are you sleeping in there?" I looked at her like I didn't understand the question. Because to me, that room had more peace in it than our shared bed had offered in months. I didn't answer. Because men like me, when we go quiet, we don't go soft. We go surgical. The next few days, I pulled back from everything we used to share. The shared grocery list. The joint calendar. I canceled the streaming accounts under my name. Moved my savings into a private bank. No yelling. No warning. Just precision. She tried to reattach herself in small ways. Folding my clothes, making breakfast, sitting beside me on the couch while scrolling her phone. But her presence felt like background noise now. Like static in a song I no longer played. I wasn't angry. I was done. She came home one night and found me dressed to leave. A simple shirt, clean cologne, keys in hand. She asked where I was going. I said out. She asked with who. I said, myself. And I meant it. I went to dinner alone that night. Sat at the bar. Talked to no one. Ate slowly. Breathed deeply. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to perform to be worthy of company. I didn't check my phone. I didn't hurry home. When I walked through the door later, she was still awake. Waiting. But I didn't stop. I walked past her. She asked if we were okay. And I just looked at her and blinked once. Not with hate. Not with heat. With vacancy. Because when a man stops being touched, he stops reaching. And when a man stops being seen, he stops showing up. I hadn't packed a bag. I hadn't moved out. But that night, I disappeared anyway. And I didn't leave a trace behind. By the time she realized I wasn't just upset, but gone, emotionally, mentally, and almost spiritually, it was already too late. She started checking my routines, watching the clock when I left, peeking at my phone when she thought I wasn't looking, offering small talk at breakfast like we still had something to talk about. But I'd stopped answering questions she no longer had the right to ask. That's the thing about a man who's been shut out for too long. Once he adapts to silence, your voice stops holding weight. Evan was still around. I could feel it. She spoke his name less. But that didn't erase the way she once smiled when his messages lit up her screen. That memory sat like ice under my skin. Not sharp, just cold. I never confronted her. Never exploded. I didn't demand passwords or search histories. I didn't ask for closure because I had already built my own, brick by silent brick. Instead, I started preparing. I spent evenings in the office with my laptop open, but not for work. I was documenting, not spying, just building clarity. Phone bills, financial statements, digital records, every shared account, every overlap. I mapped it out calmly, like I was auditing a company I no longer wanted to invest in. She once stepped into the office and stood in the doorway. I could feel her eyes trying to make sense of what I was doing, but I didn't offer answers. Just minimized the screen and said, "I'm busy." She walked away. Slowly, I started changing passwords the next day, cleared out my drawer in the bathroom, took my passport out of the safe, moved a copy of every important document to a USB drive I kept in my gym bag. The most powerful revenge isn't revenge at all. It's readiness. Because when she finally breaks, and they always break when the silence is real, she'll scramble for control. And I'll be 10 steps ahead. She didn't notice when I removed myself from the emergency contact list at her clinic, or when I updated my will to remove her as beneficiary, or when I pulled my name from the lease renewal. I didn't do it to punish her. I did it because a man with clarity doesn't waste time giving second chances to someone who made him invisible in his own life. She thought I was angry, but anger would have meant I still cared. And all I felt now was precision. It wasn't me who exposed her. It never is. That's the beauty of quiet strategy. You don't have to burn bridges when someone else sets the match for you. It happened at her friend Marissa's birthday dinner. A group of us were invited. She didn't know I was going until I showed up. I'd been off her radar for weeks. She blinked when I walked in, like she forgot I still existed outside the walls of our cold house. I didn't sit next to her. I sat across the table, calm, focused, listening. And that's when the cracks started to show. Marissa was drinking. Not enough to slur, just enough to stop filtering. She leaned toward my wife and said, just loud enough for the table to catch it, "So, is Evan coming too? Or just your husband tonight?" Laughter. Then silence. Real, sharp silence. I didn't react, but I watched her freeze. She smiled it off, said Marissa was drunk, that it was a joke, a misunderstanding. But I saw it. The shift in energy. Every pair of eyes at that table suddenly knew what I'd known for months. You could hear the balance tip. After dessert, I stood up early, thanked Marissa, and left without saying goodbye to anyone else. The next day, she asked if we could talk. She said it wasn't what it looked like. That Marissa was just being reckless. That people would misunderstand. And all I said was, I didn't misunderstand. I walked out of the room before she could respond. Later that week, her sister called me. Said she heard things weren't okay, that she wanted to make sure I was all right. I told her I was better than all right, that I'd finally remembered how silence can be power when it's backed by clarity. And the ripple kept spreading. One of her coworkers reached out on LinkedIn, said he always thought I deserved better. I didn't reply. I just deleted the message and moved on. Because the moment you become quiet and strategic, the world starts revealing what was hiding all along. And she felt it, not just from me, but from everyone. The shift, the distance, the drop. She wasn't being gossiped about. She was being observed. And when people see truth in real time, they don't forget it. She stopped going to social events, stopped posting photos. Her friends' circle thinned, not because I said anything, but because I didn't have to. Sometimes, the most painful downfall isn't the one someone causes you. It's the one they built themselves, brick by brick, while you watched, waited, and finally walked away. After the dinner incident, she changed. Not in the way I used to hope for, not with apology or remorse, but in panic. The mask started slipping, but she didn't know how to rebuild the image fast enough. She pulled away from everyone. Friends stopped calling. Family started asking quiet questions. Even her coworkers gave her a different kind of distance. She wasn't being attacked. She was being left alone. That's what truth does. It doesn't have to scream. It just walks into a room and shifts the air. At home, she moved differently. Softer steps. Quieter nights. The TV stayed off. Her phone face down. She'd wait for me in the kitchen sometimes. Made coffee. Stood there like she was hoping I'd ask her something. But I didn't. I'd become a ghost in my own house. Not bitter, just detached. She once sat beside me on the couch, her leg barely touching mine. That used to be enough to start something. A touch, a glance, a breath. This time, I didn't move. Not away. Not closer. Just nothing. She felt it. The absence. Not of noise, but of meaning. That was the moment it finally landed. She hadn't just lost a husband. She'd lost her echo. The version of me that used to fill the room with reassurance, affection, interest. He was gone. Now she was just sitting in front of a mirror that no longer spoke back. I overheard her crying in the bedroom 2 nights later. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a muffled, rhythmic ache, the kind that's too tired to pretend. But I didn't go in. She didn't know what to do with pain that wasn't met with comfort. She had always assumed I'd come running, to talk, to ask, to fix. But I wasn't that man anymore. I didn't avoid her. I didn't confront her. I just coexisted. That's a cruelty most people underestimate. Not abandonment, but presence without participation. One morning, she stood at the door while I tied my shoes. Said, "Can we talk?" I nodded, then walked out. Because sometimes the answer isn't in what you say. It's in what you no longer stop for. That week, I spent more time at the gym. Took a weekend retreat with a group I'd joined. Reconnected with old friends over coffee. She didn't ask where I went. But I could feel the questions piling up inside her like bricks. And I gave her nothing. No lies. No hope. Just the same silence she once fed me, now returned in full. Eventually, she broke the pattern. She stood in the hallway one night, blocking the doorway, like it would stop the distance between us from growing. Said she missed me, that she felt like she didn't recognize who I'd become. I said nothing, because the truth is, she never really saw me to begin with. She said things had just gotten complicated, that she lost herself a little, that she never meant to hurt me. Still, I stayed silent. Not because I hadn't heard these words before, but because I had. And the man who once clung to those crumbs was gone. She tried a softer tone, said she wanted to fix things. But here's what she didn't get. You can't fix what you buried alive. And she'd buried me long before she ever knew Evan's name. Now she wanted resurrection, revival, a reset. But I was already living a new script, one that didn't involve waiting around for someone to remember my worth. She touched my arm. I looked at her hand, then at her, and stepped aside without a word. Her eyes filled with something sharp then, not tears, not yet, but the panic of realizing her grip meant nothing anymore. And it only got worse. The next week, she came home early, said she cooked dinner, that she thought we could just talk. There were candles lit, soft music playing, a scene staged like memory. But I wasn't nostalgic. I ate in silence, not to punish her, but because small talk in the ruins is just noise. She asked if I'd thought about counseling. I said I already had one, just for myself. That cut deeper than anything else, because she realized I had built a life without her in it. Quietly, deliberately. With every step I took toward peace, I'd taken one away from her chaos. Later that night, she tried again. She sat beside me, closer this time, touched my knee, said my name like a question. But I didn't flinch, didn't blink, didn't lean in. Because when a man learns to live without validation, your hands don't pull him back. Your regret doesn't resurrect him. She whispered, "I don't know how to fix this." And I just said, "I know." Then I stood up and walked to bed alone. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is not yell, not cry, not argue. Just never come back. Collapse rarely happens all at once. It begins in whispers. People stop calling. Texts get shorter. Invitations dry up. Then, one day, she walks into a room and realizes no one's looking anymore. That's where she landed. She lost control, not just of me, but of the story she built around herself. The image, the voice, the curated life. It all started slipping through her fingers, and I wasn't there to catch it. Her family knew, not because I told them, but because her silence spoke louder than anything I could have said. Her sister stopped defending her. Her mother's voice got colder. Her friends chose distance over conflict. Evan disappeared too. Not dramatically. He just ghosted, the way all men do when they realize the wreckage they helped create isn't theirs to clean up. I didn't gloat. I didn't throw it in her face. Because that wasn't the point. She called me one morning, even though we were still under the same roof. Said she was struggling. That everything felt like it was slipping away. That maybe it was time we revisited things. I answered with 5 seconds of silence, then said, "There's nothing left to revisit." She didn't reply. Didn't need to. The pause said everything. Later that day, I saw her sitting alone in the backyard, knees pulled up, eyes unfocused. Not crying, just hollow, like she was finally face to face with what she'd created, and there was no audience left to applaud it. I didn't go outside. I walked past the window and kept moving. Because the final stage of detachment isn't distance. It's indifference. She was unraveling. Not loudly. Not in flames. Just quietly. Bit by bit. I think that's what scared her the most. Not the loss of me, but the realization that I hadn't needed her to fall for my life to get better. That I didn't celebrate her downfall. I simply stopped carrying it. My wins were mine now. A new role at work. Better sleep. A clearer mind. I'd started volunteering. Got back into music. Rebuilt old friendships. And through it all, I never once asked if she was okay. Because a man doesn't owe comfort to the one who taught him how to survive without it. She had destroyed herself long before I walked away. I just stopped sweeping up the pieces. The final move didn't come with a suitcase. It came with a signature. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen table. No note. No drama. Just my name in blue ink and a date already circled. She found them that evening. I didn't stay to watch her read them. I was already at a hotel by then. Not hiding, just finished. The finality wasn't in the paperwork. It was in the silence that followed. She called once. Didn't leave a voicemail. Texted twice. Can we at least talk? And this doesn't have to be the end. I left them unread. Not out of cruelty, but because some conversations only reopen wounds already scarred over. I didn't block her. I just never answered. She showed up at my gym 3 days later. I saw her before she saw me. She looked small. Not physically, but energetically. Like someone who knew the room no longer belonged to her. I walked past her. Not with contempt. With peace. She followed me into the parking lot. Said she was just trying to understand. I finally turned. And I said, that's the problem. You only start trying when there's nothing left to save. She stood there, blinking, like she wanted to respond, but didn't have the script memorized this time. I got in my car, closed the door, and pulled away. That was the last time I saw her. Not because I needed distance. Because I'd already reached clarity. Months passed. She tried emailing once. A long message. Regret. Reflection. Something about wishing things were different. I didn't delete it. I just archived it. Because sometimes the strongest closure isn't confrontation. It's detachment. I sold the house. Changed cities. New place, new job, new life. Nothing dramatic, just clean. I kept the guitar. The books. The photos from before her. Everything else stayed in the past, where it belonged. I wasn't angry. I wasn't mourning. I wasn't even healing anymore. I was living. Free from noise. Free from games. Free from the version of myself that waited around to be chosen by someone who never saw him fully. Sometimes, we don't lose people. We just return to ourselves. And in that return, we gain everything. She thought I disappeared. But I didn't. I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. That's not vanishing. That's liberation. Real men don't explode. They exit. Subscribe for more power stories.